The 49ers have a quarterback problem. Hello everybody, welcome to the first episode of At the Table with Evan. My name is Evan and today I'm going to be talking about the 49ers quarterback situation. So, on Sunday, the 49ers lost to the Eagles 31-7 in the NFC Championship game, and the main reason why they did end up losing that game was because their quarterback Brock Purdy in the first quarter got hurt with an elbow injury, and they had to run with Josh Johnson for about 2 quarters until he ended up getting hurt with a head injury. Purdy had to then come back out onto the field because if he didn't, they would have had to put CMC at quarterback, and he obviously couldn't throw. The elbow was really bothering him, so they were forced to run the ball, which is the reason why they only scored 1 touchdown. And it was later stated that Purdy suffered a torn UCL, which is a ligament in your elbow, which is most common in pitchers because of how they have to throw the ball. They tear their UCLs very often, and that's why they have to get Tommy John surgery, and that's why it's mostly common in the MLB. But he was going for a throw, got hit in the arm, and right there tore something in his elbow, and it was his UCL. So that obviously is a big blow for him. He's expected to have surgery, and he'll be back. He'll be out for at least 6 months, which is a pretty significant recovery time. But it is, as of right now, he is slated to be back before training camp starts, which is promising for Purdy and the 49ers. But Purdy, as most of you have probably heard, was a big storyline this year. He was Mr. Irrelevant coming into the season. He was the third string quarterback for the 49ers, but the only reason he ended up playing was because Trey Lance in their first game got hurt, and then later on in the season, Jimmy Garoppolo went down with an injury, and he was slated the starter. And as a starter, he went 7-1, which is very impressive, completing 67% of his passes for 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. And he was really the reason why they were in the NFC Championship. They were on I think it was 10-game winning streak going into the playoffs, and most of that was because of Purdy's play and obviously the team around him, which was very good. But now, with Purdy going down with a big injury to his throwing arm, and he's expected to be out for a significant amount of time, the question is, what's next for the 49ers? As I mentioned earlier, Trey Lance, their starting quarterback this season, went down with an injury earlier in the season, and he ended up fracturing his fibula and having ligament damage that required 2 surgeries on his ankle. So he was obviously out the entire year, but it is expected for him to be 100% for the offseason program, so he'll be fully cleared in about 3 to 4 weeks if all things go right. But Trey Lance was their first-round pick 2 years ago. They traded up to draft him with the number 3 overall pick, and he didn't play any this past year because he wasn't ready, and they had Jimmy G, who was playing fine, but he won the job coming into this season, but unfortunately suffered a bad ankle injury in their week 2 game early on in the first quarter, and he obviously missed the entire season. So you have Trey Lance, who really hasn't played organized football in about 3 years because he's been going back to college, playing at North Dakota State. Really didn't play much in that 2020 COVID season, if at all. I can't remember exactly how many games they ended up playing, but I just know it wasn't a lot. And so, coming off of basically 3 years now of not really playing football is a big question mark for the franchise and for fans. And Obviously, now with Purdy being out, that's going to hurt. And Jimmy G, who was their starter for the majority of the season, he ended up suffering a broken foot in December, and he's slated to become a free agent, and odds are he's not going to be returning with the team. He's going to be going elsewhere. So the quarterback situation for the 49ers is very interesting. Do they go with the 7th round pick who led them to the playoffs this year, played very well, or do they go with the guy that they put all of their chips into 2 years ago, traded multiple first-round picks to draft this guy, but he hasn't played organized football in roughly 2-3 years? Or do they go out in free agency and sign somebody like a Tom Brady? His name's been thrown in there a lot. They're saying that Tom Brady could be potentially interested in going to the 49ers to win another Super Bowl, because the 49ers obviously have a Super Bowl caliber roster with players such as Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle. On the defense, they got Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. They have a great team, and most people think if they get a quarterback, then that puts them over the hump. So I think if they do end up going the route of getting Tom Brady, I think that automatically would make them Super Bowl favorites. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily a lock to win the Super Bowl, because Brady this season had one of his worst statistical seasons of all time in his career, and he's not getting any younger. I think he's about 46 now, I believe. He's 45, so he'll be 46 next season, and he has a solid offense in Tampa Bay with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Leonard Fournette, and they have a decent offensive line, but they were missing some pieces. But he really didn't play well at all. He had a very disappointing season, and I don't know if he's truly the answer for this 49ers team, because if they do get him, I mean, Brady's probably going to play till he physically can't, but at 46 years old, this year he already showed signs of regression. So next year very easily could be the same play as this past year, or worse, or even better. You can never count Brady out on anything. But I don't think Brady's your long-term guy. And so if you have Brady, like, what do you do with Purdy? I don't think you get rid of Purdy, but I think you have to give Purdy a chance. I think Purdy deserved a chance. 7-1 as a starter, had no business being as good as he was, and the locker room really respects him and kind of came around him this entire season. And I feel like you have to give Purdy at least another chance to prove that he could potentially be your guy moving forward for the years to come, since he's only 24, I believe. But then you also have to think, you have Trey Lance, who's young, has an absolute cannon of an arm, can scramble, has more potential probably than Brock Purdy. But like I said, coming off of a really bad ankle injury, hasn't played in 3 years. His contract's going to be up here in 1 to 2 years. They're going to have to figure out if they really want to move with Trey Lance, or if they want to move with Purdy, or if they get Brady, going with Brady. But like I said, if they get Brady, they have to figure out what they want to do for the future. And for me personally, I think Purdy has done enough to warrant him to be the starter week 1 if they don't bring in a Tom Brady or anybody in free agency. But I feel like for you to do all that you did to trade up for Trey Lance, sitting him again is not a good look for the franchise, but it might be the best look for the it might be the best thing for the franchise, because Purdy's been able to win. He's looked like a vet. The team rallies around him, and that's what you need in a quarterback. But I think if you have Trey Lance, and let's say he doesn't play, Trey Lance is going to get a little bit upset by that, I would imagine. And so they might be forced to get rid of him and trade him and try to max out his value now before he just rots on their bench for 4 years, like sort of how like Jordan Love's doing and players like that. So I think Trey Lance still has a ton of potential, and if the 49ers are zeroed in on Purdy being their guy, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to shop Trey around, see what team's calling. Could that be Baltimore if they lose Lamar? The Jets are looking for a quarterback. Maybe the Raiders or the Panthers or the Texans even. I heard a report that D'Amico Ryans is more than likely going to be the Texans coach. It's looking like he was the 49ers DC, already has seen Trey Lance. Maybe he brings Trey Lance into him with the Texans. So I feel like you have multiple ways that you can go. And I'm interested to see where the 49ers go, because they're no stupid organization. They're a very smart organization. John Lynch has done a great job as the general manager there, building this team to win a Super Bowl. And I feel like if Purdy was fully healthy this game, I think this game was a lot closer than it was, and I think the 49ers potentially win this game. And I think also take into a part of it is that the NFC is fairly weak still. So if you do end up going with one of these three quarterbacks, I still think that the 49ers are probably favorites, if not second, to like the Eagles or somebody like that. But it's going to be interesting to see if they bring in Tom Brady, the 45-year-old greatest player of all time, to potentially win a ring there, or do they go with Brock Purdy, the guy coming off of a major arm injury, which could hinder his entire career depending on how bad it is. That's how important like those elbow injuries are. Because if you look at like baseball players like Tommy John, you either come back better or you come back worse. So it's going to be interesting to see how Purdy's arm looks post-surgery after he's fully recovered going into training camp. Hopefully he's back for training camp, because that would be a good gauge for the 49ers to kind of see, is he ready? Are we seeing noticeable regression in him that is bringing up red flags that maybe this was just a one year wonder season and that's going to be it. But I think if Purdy's fully healthy, I think you give him at least one more shot to prove that that this wasn't a 1 year fluke, wasn't just a nice stretch of games. Like, he's actually a good quarterback, has a spot in the NFL, and can actually lead a team like this 49ers team to a championship. Or do you go with the full potential player in Trey Lance, explore your options with him, and maybe even explore trading him like I mentioned earlier, or something along those lines. But this training camp is really going to be crucial for the 49ers, because Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, both coming off of pretty significant injuries, hopefully are all healthy enough to play in the training camp and preseason. And hopefully they don't show any signs of those injuries really being a big hamper on their career. But I am very interested to see what route the 49ers do end up going, because I believe they have a Super Bowl winning team right now. Like I said, with their players, they definitely have a Super Bowl winning team, but they might be a quarterback away, because I just don't know how Purdy and Trey are going to be after the significant injuries, and how Brady would be if you bring him into that system because of his noticeable regression this year. But I do feel like in Brady's case, Kyle Shanahan is an absolute amazing play caller. I'm sure Brady would probably get back on track, but it's going to be really interesting to see how this offseason plays out for the 49ers, because I feel like they went from, there was always a little bit of doubt, because obviously like Purdy kind of came out of nowhere, and it's a small sample size of games, but I think after his elbow injury, I think that really puts into question what is the 49ers plans for this next offseason. Like what do they do? Because they have two quarterbacks who very well could be starting quarterbacks in the league, and could very well bring the 49ers to the place where they want to go. Or do they go out and try to get a more veteran quarterback like Tom Brady or I think I saw Derek Carr, but I doubt Derek Carr would go to the 49ers, like Tom Brady, to push them over the top And so I don't know whether they think that their in-house guys can do that or if they're going to go out and see if they can. But I'm really interested to see what the 49ers will be doing with their quarterback situation. I think it's going to be something to monitor. And I think that ultimately their decision in the offseason could make or break their season and whether or not they have the team to make the Super Bowl and to win the Super Bowl, because they've made it to the NFC Championship, I think, like 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years, and they've only been in the Super Bowl once. I think they have a Super Bowl caliber team. They just need to get a healthy quarterback and maybe a better quarterback. So I'm really interested to see what the 49ers will end up doing this offseason. I think it's going to be make or break for their season. But personally, in my opinion, if Brock Purdy does come back fully healthy, I think you give him another chance. I think you explore your options on the market with Trey Lance. I don't think you go anywhere. I don't think you touch Tom Brady. I really don't think you need him. And I think you see how far Brock Purdy can carry you, and if Trey Lance can get you a second or third round pick, or potentially even first. Maximizing Trey Lance's value if you do go with Purdy, I think is the best option for the 49ers. So, like I said, it's going to be interesting to watch, but I trust in Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch to make the right decision for the team moving forward. So yeah, that's all I got for today. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like this video. I'm going to try to be putting out this new series of At the Table episodes every week or bi-weekly, we'll see. And so yeah, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed and have a good rest of your day. Peace.